All right, welcome everyone. There's still people signing on, but we're going to go ahead and get started in the interest of time this evening. Thank you for joining tonight. I am Dr. Waltzman, and we're going to be talking about semaglutide and tirzepatide and our weight management program here at the Waltzman Institute. And I really kind of want to talk for the first maybe 15, 20 minutes, but I really want to have a great discussion. So that's one of the big points for tonight is to have a great Q&A. If you have questions, comments, ideas, whatever, just want to see if something's true or not, I'm going to invite you to open up the chat feature and you can submit questions. We're going to be monitoring the chat along the way and definitely get to all the questions before we wrap up this evening. And I know people will kind of trickle in, which is great, so they can just keep adding to the chat. All right, so let's get started. So like I said, my name is Dr. Josh Waltzman. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a board-certified plastic surgeon located in Long Beach, California, and I'm also the medical director of the Waltzman Institute. And we are a state-of-the-art comprehensive center for plastic surgery and really all things aesthetic. We're kind of a one-stop shop with an on-site certified surgery center, and we have a full med spa that includes our weight loss program. And so it's really a very special spot that incorporates all things plastic surgery and aesthetic related. So what are we going to talk about tonight? We're going to start talking about just what is all this stuff? What are the weight loss medications that are out there? And we'll give you a little overview of what the medications are. We'll talk a little bit about compounding pharmacies. What does that mean? That's kind of a hot topic of compounders versus getting medication from the actual name brand drug makers. What are the laws surrounding that? We'll talk about some of the risks surrounding these medications. That's also another hot topic on social media and the news is what are some of the risks? Then we'll dive into what is the program that we offer here at the Waltzman Institute and why I think it's the best program out there for you. And then the automation process and what is Build My Health and how does that fit into everything and the subscription setup that we feature. So that's kind of the big overview for this evening. All right, so weight loss medications. This is the class of medications we're talking about is called incretin mimetics. And this is a class of drugs that kind of mimics the effects of naturally occurring hormones that are already in our body. And there's two kind of receptors that we'll be talking about this evening. It's not important that you know what the receptors are or memorize these things, but this is the terminology that people will oftentimes see associated with this class of medications. And so the first one is GLP-1, which is glucagon-like peptide 1, and GIP, which is gastric inhibitory polypeptide. And again, like I said, these are big fancy words that just describe the type of receptor that these medications act on in our body, that these hormones act on. And they help in type 2 diabetes by enhancing the secretion of insulin from a burned out pancreas. And that's what the problem is in type 2 diabetes. They also work to suppress appetite after a meal. So very, very straightforward mechanism of action. They also, as a byproduct of that, it's kind of delays gastric emptying and slows down the rate at which your stomach empties out food. So the first medication that I think is worthwhile talking about is Ozempic. I'm sure we've all heard the buzzword Ozempic somewhere in our lives at this point. And so Ozempic was approved in 2017 for type 2 diabetes. That was the initial indication for this drug, and it is a GLP-1 receptor agonist. The active ingredient in Ozempic is semaglutide, and so we'll be using that word semaglutide a lot. And so when I refer to that, that is what we're talking about. Basically, is the active ingredient in Ozempic. That's what's making the drug work. This is a once weekly at-home injection. And the mechanism of weight loss is that it suppresses the appetite, possibly in the hypothalamus, which is an area inside of our brain. It causes delayed gastric emptying. So what does that mean? So that means our stomach fills up with food, and it's going to slow the rate at which our stomach empties food out into our intestine. And so as a result, our stomach will fill up faster. We're going to feel fuller sooner, and that sends a message to our brain that we should stop eating because we feel full. That's as complicated as this whole thing gets. So if you understand that mechanism, you pretty much understand the way that these medications work in our body. And it causes insulin increase that leads to satiety or that feeling of fullness that I was alluding to. So Wegovy. Okay, this is another medication that you've probably heard of. So Wegovy is essentially the weight loss version of Ozempic. It is exactly the same medication. Wegovy was FDA approved for obesity in 2021. It's chemically identical to Ozempic, except that it's indicated at a slightly higher dose. You can go up to 2.4 milligrams with Wegovy, which is higher than the maximum dose of Ozempic. The average weight loss on Wegovy was about 15% of body weight. So that was about 35 pounds in the study. And this was over a 68-week period of time. So 68 weeks is 16 months. So almost a year and a half was the duration of this study. And 83% of the adults taking Wegovy lost greater than or about 5% of their weight compared to 31% of the people taking the placebo medication. And 30% of those taking Wegovy lost over 20% of their body weight compared just to 2% of people. So you can see what this means is that it was significantly more effective in reduction of body weight percentage than taking the placebo or the medication that was not just the saline version. Okay. So who can take these medications? According to the Wegovy package insert, these medications are FDA indicated for patients that have a BMI over 27, plus obesity-related conditions such as sleep apnea, diabetes, hypertension, or high cholesterol. So really you have to be somewhat overweight, plus have some other health condition in order to get Wegovy. Or you have to have a BMI over 30, which would put you into the obese category from a BMI standpoint. Now, this is what the FDA has indicated these medications for. We can be more flexible. It just means that you're using these medications, what we call off-label, which is safe to do under the direction of a physician. So in our program, we definitely have patients that have a BMI that is less than 27, who still need to lose weight, and that is totally fine to treat these patients. If they are over and have other obesity-related conditions, all the better. But just in our office, we are able to treat patients on a case-by-case basis who don't quite fit these exact FDA-indicated conditions. All right. So another thing you may have heard about are these shortages for weight loss medications. So Ozempic and Wegovy and Mounjaro and Zepbound, these are all medications that are on what's called the FDA shortage list. And when a medication falls onto the FDA shortage list, that means that compounding pharmacies are then allowed to make duplicates of these medications, basically reproduce the active ingredients. Now, these drugs all have their patents protecting that, but that only protects them as long as they're not on the shortage list. So that's how we're able to obtain the compounded active ingredient versions of these medications, is because they're all on the FDA shortage list. It also means that if they were to drop off of the shortage list, then compounding pharmacies would not be able to use that to make duplications as long as the patents were still in effect. Fortunately, or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, there's really no end in sight right now for these medications to fall off the shortage list. It seems at this point that almost every month there are new indications for these medications to be used for different chronic conditions. And every time that happens, that opens up the pool of potential patients who would want these medications even bigger and bigger and bigger. So as that pool of potential patients gets bigger, so does the demand for these medications, and the drug companies would have to produce even more and more. So I think compounding pharmacies are going to be around for more than the short term, producing these medications. And so we work with a company called Build My Health that works with compounding pharmacies. And the compounding pharmacy that we work with is basically a very high quality compounder. There are several different pharmacies, but the main one that we work with is kind of a national compounding chain, and they have to comply with FDA enforced kind of good practices. No compounding pharmacy is regulated by the FDA, but there are good practices that you would want to find a reputable one that's following these best guidelines. And so, like I said, Semaglutide and Tirzepatide are currently in shortage, which allows us to use compounding pharmacies. The next medication that you may have heard about is Tirzepatide. This is the active ingredient in Mounjaro, which is indicated for diabetes, and Zepbound, which is indicated for weight loss. So now you have a whole bunch of different names out there. But if we're talking about Mounjaro or Zepbound, which are the same medication, just like Ozempic and Wegovy are the same medication, that's what they are. So tirzepatide is the active ingredient in Mounjaro and Zepbound. This is a dual agonist, so it acts not only on the GLP-1 receptor, but it also acts on the GIP receptor. What does this mean? This means potentially even greater appetite suppression. In the studies that have been completed, they showed a less risk of nausea and vomiting. And they also showed that there was some slight increase in weight loss to the tune of about 1 to 3 pounds more weight loss per month. Is that a significant amount of weight? Yeah, it could be here and there. I think if in the long run, maybe it's not that significant, but definitely the study showed that there was maybe a little more weight loss with tirzepatide compared to semaglutide. However, both very effective medications. What are the risks of this class of weight loss medications? It's pretty easy to understand why these are some of these side effects. So delayed gastric emptying, like we talked about, that's going to be the fact that your stomach is physically emptying out the food slower. So as a result, they're all GI-related side effects. These first set of side effects are definitely the most common, but they're not that common. So in my practice, we've been doing this now for about 8-9 months. We do have some patients that have some GI side effects, but typically they are very mild and very short in duration. And these are the most common ones that would be burping, nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, constipation, diarrhea. Like I said, these have, in our experience, have been usually very mild and self-limited and easily treatable, either with some over-the-counter remedies that we recommend, or if someone needs a Zofran prescription called in, I'm more than happy to do that to get them through. But typically, these are not very severe. Because it is stimulating insulin secretion, there is a risk of pancreatitis. And so for those reasons, patients that have history of pancreatitis may want to reconsider using these medications if they've already had issue with that. Dehydration is a risk. That can cause kidney dysfunction if you're dehydrated. Sometimes patients feel full on these medications and they kind of forget to drink. You can become dehydrated. So it's very important that you maintain good hydration status while taking any of these types of medications. And we go through this with all of our patients. Medullary thyroid cancer. So this is a big one on the internet. There is a black box warning for this class of medications for medullary thyroid cancer. And what this is a very rare type of thyroid cancer that was shown to occur in some of the animal studies that were done early on in the studies for semaglutide and tirzepatide. However, it has not been a finding in humans. And so because of that it did occur in a small number of the lab rats, there is a black box warning for medullary thyroid cancer. If someone has a history of thyroid cancer, they may not want to take these medications. We ask all of our patients about their history of thyroid disease. And there's another type of syndrome called MEN type 2 that includes thyroid cancer. And so patients who have that disease also are not good candidates for these medications. Otherwise, I think it's a very low risk to consider, and I don't think it would preclude someone from the benefits that can be gained by using these medications to lose weight. And then the kind of last risk that I put down there, if you want to call it a risk, is if you lose weight, you can look a little deflated, especially if it's a large amount of weight. And so the popular term that's being thrown around is either Ozempic face or Ozempic butt. And that just refers to natural deflation of tissues that can occur. Now, this isn't specific just to semaglutide or to tirzepatide. If anyone loses a large amount of weight over a relatively short amount of time, their skin may not snap back the same way. They're going to look deflated in certain areas of their body where they were much fuller before, and they may end up with some skin laxity. And that skin laxity is, may need to be removed surgically. Maybe it's not that bad and you can deal with it. Maybe you need to have some facial fillers to help plump up that volume again. But that's something that patients definitely have to consider if they're going to be losing, in excess of 30, 40, 50 pounds in some cases. You may have some skin laxity. All right, so that kind of goes over what the medications are, how we get them through compounding pharmacies, and some of the risks. Next, I want to talk about the program that we offer in our office. So we have an initial consult and startup a fee, which is a flat fee of $350. We're very transparent with all the pricing that we're going to be talking about tonight. What does this include? So this includes a face-to-face consultation with me. whether it's through virtual through Zoom or whether it's in person in our office, like many of our patients elect to do. You will sit down with me and we'll go through your entire medical history and we'll talk about the entire program together. This also includes all your startup materials. So we send all of our patients, we provide them with a Bluetooth-enabled scale, which is a very cool piece of technology that essentially tracks your weight every time you step on the scale and loads it into an app on your phone. And then we're able to track your progress and see your weight loss status as you go along each week. This also includes injection supplies. This fee also includes your baseline blood work. We have to make sure that you're healthy and a good candidate for these medications. And that's all included. The big thing really here, this includes essentially unlimited access to our office. And this is really key. We'll talk about this more later of why a program like this is really ideal, but patients need dosage adjustments. These medications have multiple dosings or different dose concentrations, and every patient is a little bit different. And so communicating with our office, letting us know how you're doing is key to your success in losing weight, and you're gonna have full access to us. We're going to be monitoring all of your side effects if you happen to have any. Most patients don't, but if you do, we're here to help you. If you need a prescription called in, we'll do it that day. It's not like you have to wait for a phone call or figure out who's going to be helping you. It is me. I will be helping all the patients, and we have a great staff here. I also have in-person follow-up with our patients in the program every 3 months. And so you'll be, whether it's through in person in the office or for some patients over Zoom, to check in with me in person, talk about your progress, answer questions, and figure out what your dosing is going to be and eventually how you're going to get to maintenance. So that's what that initial startup includes. It's a very reasonable cost, especially considering that it includes all these startup materials and blood work as well. And this is just a one-time fee. Medication pricing. Semaglutide is $500 a month. Tirzepatide is $600 a month. Reason for the difference in pricing is because tirzepatide is a newer medication. It's been a little bit harder to get and potentially has some benefits of less nausea, vomiting, and potentially also some more aggressive weight loss mechanism. And it costs more to buy. So that's why it's a little bit more expensive. You are automatically, once you're enrolled in this program, you're automatically billed to your credit card every 28 days. That's every 4 weeks, essentially. And it's great because you don't have to think about it. Credit card gets billed, your medication gets filled, and you can get it. So the options are patients can either pick it up from our office, which many choose to do if they're local, but we have a good number of patients that don't live right next to the office or they're not able to get here. And we offer free shipping. It's all included in the pricing. There's no additional shipping charge. And we, right now we're shipping with UPS and it arrives to your house in about 1 to 2 days. And it arrives with a cool pack kind of on ice, and then you place it into your refrigerator as soon as you receive it. One of the important things here is that the price for all dosages is the same. There are no games, no funny business here. It is very transparent. Patients can be on any dose that they choose at the same pricing. This is very different from a lot of the online programs that you may have seen, some of these direct-to-consumer campaigns that will be running either on TV or on the internet. They sound extremely attractive and they have some pricing that almost sounds too good to be true. That's because it is. You have to make sure you read all the fine print, that only includes your membership in the program, but it doesn't include the medication if you actually want medication. And then it doesn't include shipping for another $40 a month. So when you add all the other charges, it's actually quite a bit more expensive than what our program is. And if you want the higher doses, well, be prepared to pay even more. And so we just get around all that. It's one very transparent price, and you have access to all dosages. We can talk more about that later as well. People have questions about how these programs compare. So what are the results? Okay, so after 4 weeks, there's an average weight loss of 7.7 pounds just on the lowest dose of semaglutide. And the maximum that we have experienced is 22.8 pounds in the first month. There is definitely a reduction in food noise after the first dose. And I can tell you, I'm very open about it. I've been using tirzepatide since this last February. I have lost 30 pounds and I've maintained that weight loss of 30 pounds since June. And so I can tell you honestly from personal experience that the reduction in food noise I experienced in the first week alone, literally all that, the voices in your head to keep snacking or look for food or keep eating was significantly impacted and reduced. So I can say that from firsthand experience, that has been true for me. So this is actually we did a random sampling of some of our weight loss patients. We took, I think it was 15 patients here, something like that, randomly from our program at different time points. And you can see these are real patient results in our program. We've had some patients now who are in the program for almost 8 months, but we just stopped at 6 months. And you can see on average, people are losing weight. In the first month, 5 pounds is great. But it keeps going up from there. And by 6 months, it's not uncommon at all for patients to drop 30 pounds. Some will get there even sooner. You can see by 5 months. And so what we're really aiming for in this program is that patients would lose about 1 to 3 pounds per week on average. I don't really recommend patients lose more than 3 pounds a week because, in my opinion, that probably means that you're starving yourself and you need calories to be healthy. But somewhere in that 1 to 3 pounds of weight loss a week, I think is healthy and is very realistic for this program. All right, automation and Build My Health subscription setup. So basically, you should think of this as like a Netflix subscription, and there's benefits to that. So you essentially securely upload your credit card to our partner in this called Build My Health, and they take care of the payment processing, and it's securely uploaded. There's an automatic charge scheduled. We don't keep any credit card information on file for this. It's all done through a secure third-party system. And you can easily update your payments as needed. You have a username and a login to the payment processing system. It's very streamlined and very easy, and you can update your card as needed. You get access, as one of the benefits, access to all doses of semaglutide and tirzepatide. This is also something I can't stress enough because I just saw a commercial this weekend on TV. It was playing during one of the football games for semaglutide and tirzepatide. However, it had crazy pricing, $150 or $199 a month for whatever. At the bottom of the screen in the fine print, I paused it and it said that not all doses may be available at all times. That is insane. So you're paying all this money, way more than $199 by the end of the day, probably closer to $400 or $500 easily, and they may not even have your dose available when you need it. That to me is just not acceptable if you're going to be on a medication in this fashion. So we have full access to all doses of semaglutide and tirzepatide. There is no waiting. It's a concierge experience with medication access. It's truly a VIP experience. You have our office number. You have access to our weight loss program manager, their email, phone number. You have access to me. You're being managed by the same doctor. I'm the only physician in my practice, and so I know what's going on with every patient at all times. Plus, this whole process can be virtual if you prefer. We have patients who live local. We have patients who are out of the area. The only thing is that you have to live in California. You have to have a California mailing address and living in the state of California for me to prescribe you this medication. It is a prescription medication, so we can ship to anywhere in California. They'll get there in a day or two, and that is totally fine to be part of our program. So I kind of want to open this to some Q&A. This is all of our contact info, our website, our social media handle, and then the medspa at waltzmanplastics.com is the email address for our weight loss program manager. And then the QR code at the bottom. If you want to take the next step and you're ready to learn more and set this up, you can scan that QR code as well. And that will take you to basically the form submission on our website to fill out a consult form. And we will reach out to you right away to set everything else up. Let me just see what's going on here. Okay. And you can also email us. You can go on our website through any other avenue, but if you want to just scan the QR code, that works great as well. All right, let's go into our Q&A. All right. So the first question here, how do we contact you for adjustment on the medication doses? Great. So there are multiple ways to contact us for that. We will always check in with you. We check in with all of our patients as soon as their payment goes through. We get notified that they've paid for their next dose, and we will be checking in with patients either through phone or text or email. Everyone has different preferences on how you're doing and which dose you'd like, if you want to remain on the same dose or if you'd like to bump it up. To springboard on that, if someone is losing weight in our program, meaning they're losing 1 to 3 pounds a week on average, I typically don't recommend that they increase their dose, especially if they're not having any side effects. I don't see the point. If you're already responding well to a certain dose of medication, why not use the lowest effective dose to get the desired result, right? So if you're doing well at a lower dose, we're going to keep you there. If your weight loss starts to trail off and you still have more weight that you want to lose, then I will definitely recommend that we bump you up in dose as long as your side effects are minimal to none. And so that's how you just let us know. You can text us, you can call us if you have any questions. Once someone reaches, this is another question. Once someone reaches their goal weight, what is the maintenance like? Is it the same cost as well? It's the two-parter, so we'll start with that. Okay, so once someone reaches their goal, there are options. You could stop everything cold turkey. I don't recommend that to anyone because the data is not in your favor. If you are, unless you are the strongest willed person in the world, your desire to start eating more and quickly will come back with a vengeance if you just stop cold turkey. So that is not advisable. In the studies, they showed that patients who stopped cold turkey usually gained about 2/3 of their weight back in the first year. So that's not a great statistic. So we don't want you to do that. What does seem to work, though, is if patients slowly wean down, that seems to hold their weight much better. And then it's up to the patients as they start weaning down to start implementing some of those lifestyle modifications they've made with portion control and whatnot to maintain that weight. So if someone is at one of the higher doses and they hit their weight and they want to start weaning down, that's awesome. Each month, we'll start taking them down a dose. If they maintain their weight, we'll take them down another dose. If they're still maintaining, we'll take them down to the lowest dose. Once you get to the lowest dose, then we have the option of going on maintenance, which means basically that instead of doing an injection every week, you would be doing an injection every other week. And you could be on that theoretically indefinitely. If someone feels great taking one injection every other week for years, that is totally fine. If somebody wants to wean off at that point because they feel like they really got this down and they know what they have to do to control their portions and maintain their weight, then you can phase off of it. As far as cost, the person asked, is it the same cost as well? Once you're on maintenance, the cost does drop essentially about 50%. If you're taking half the amount of medication, then it's only going to be half as much of the monthly expense. Is insurance integrated at all for patients who may be eligible? Insurance is not part of this program. So my office doesn't take insurance. These compounded medications are not processed through insurance companies. It is very difficult to get these medications, number one, covered, but once you even have it, it's great to have the prescription, but you got to find a pharmacy that's going to be able to fill that prescription for you. If you can do that and your insurance covers it, I definitely recommend you do that because it's probably going to be even less. However, what we're finding through talking with patients who are trying to either use insurance or just get these medications through a pharmacy is that if it's not being covered, they're paying upwards of $1,600 to $1,800 a month for these medications, brand name through a pharmacy. And we're offering at a third of that price, $500 or $600 a month. So it's a significant cost savings. But to answer the question directly, we don't participate with insurance for this program for those reasons, because it is difficult to obtain. Question about monthly cost. The semaglutide is $500 a month and tirzepatide is $600 a month, and that is for all doses. Do the medications cause your pancreas to stop making insulin? No, it actually stimulates your pancreas. And so that's why we have to be careful with patients that have a history of pancreatitis or at higher risk for pancreatitis, need to use these medications with caution or avoid these medications altogether, because it does cause increased insulin release. Do we need to wait till the end of the month to increase the dose? Theoretically, I mean, it's the easiest if you wait till the end of the month to increase your dose. If somebody wanted to increase sooner, we could actually basically process their payment early to prematurely process their payment again, and then we could give them the next dose up from that. So you don't technically have to, but I would probably recommend to just use the 4-week dose that we give you, because then you're getting your full money's worth of that medication. Does our primary doctor care about doing this program, or does Dr. W take care of everything? Great question. So for patients we actually get a lot of referrals in the community from primary doctors who are unable to provide these medications to their patients, which I think that was one of the reasons I started this as well, not to only offer plastic surgery to people, but to assist the community essentially, because I know these medications are in short supply. There are a handful of primary doctors that we've been working with for the last 6 to 8 months who are thankful that we have this program because they're not able to get these medications to their patients who feel that will benefit from them. So in those cases, yes, we do work with your primary doctor and help supply these medications and manage you. If a patient has type 2 diabetes, and we're helping to supply the medication for weight loss, but also for someone who has type 2 diabetes, we require them to still work with their primary doctor on management of their A1C and to manage their health as a whole. For patients who don't have type 2 diabetes, their primary doctor is not necessarily involved in this program. I will take care of everything. If there's any hiccups or any other red flags or things that are outside of my field of expertise, I will definitely bring in other specialists to help. But for all intents and purposes, most all of our patients are completely managed by me and my staff. The next question here, let's see. Is this for people who want to lose 20 pounds? Absolutely. That is an amazing, that is a great goal. We have a lot of patients who are in that category. If somebody wants to lose 3 pounds, I would not recommend this. I would recommend, skipping a meal this weekend. That's not a good reason to go on a weight loss program like this. If somebody wants to lose 15, 20, 30 and more, this is a fantastic program. If someone is already active, if they're, living a healthy lifestyle, they are eating a healthy, balanced diet, but they just have this stubborn weight that they just can't get rid of, this is a fantastic option. 20 pounds is definitely in the realm of a very reasonable amount of weight to lose on these medications. We have some patients that are looking to lose 75 pounds. So there is definitely a range. Will this help with pre-diabetes status? The answer is yes. We have a number of patients who have joined the program because of that they're already borderline for diabetes, and that the A1C is in that pre-diabetic range. And they're finding that being on these medications, it's actually bringing down the A1C, which is the intent of these medications. That's how they were developed for diabetics, and it does work. For patients that do have an elevated hemoglobin A1C when they enter the program, even if it's in that pre-diabetes level, we do recommend that we check that again in about 3 to 4 months after they start the program, with the hopes of watching that A1C start to trend down. That would be the goal there. So definitely very reasonable for someone who's pre-diabetic. This is the time to treat. Another question, am I able to stop taking the medication cold turkey? I would not recommend that. I think that's a high setup for failure, like I mentioned. It's definitely your prerogative if you want to, but like I said, the data kind of shows essentially that 2/3 of the patients that most patients gain back about 2/3 of their weight at the first year who just stopped cold turkey in the trials. Maintenance plans really are recommended. Like I said, if someone has really, really great willpower and they can wean off quickly or just stop, that's great if you can maintain that. But that food noise and those voices to keep eating, or that feeling that you're still hungry, will come back in about a week after you stop. And so I think it really is best and most advantageous to people who have invested time and effort and money in this program to really wean off over a period of months and potentially be on a maintenance plan. I think there are going to be patients who find that they need to be on a low dose every other week indefinitely, just like people take blood pressure medication on a daily basis, just like people take their high cholesterol medication on a daily basis. We will probably find that there are people, just as high blood pressure and high cholesterol are chronic medical conditions, so is obesity. And I don't think this is going to be any different, that we're going to have people who we find in our program who will benefit from a low maintenance dose indefinitely, maybe every other week, just to keep their obesity under control. There are the other benefits of improving fatty liver, of lowering your risk of diabetes, type 2 diabetes, and then all the other effects benefit to heart disease of not being obese. So there are so many other kind of secondary benefits to keeping your weight under control, and this may just become a part of people's normal medication routine for some of us. Let's see, here's a question. I have PCOS and some iron deficiency. Is it safe to start the program? Right, so we check blood levels, blood labs on all patients before the program. Definitely for PCOS, it is safe to start this type of program. There are patients who I've already treated just in the last year who have PCOS, who have noticed who had irregular periods. And once they lose the weight, they've actually noticed that their periods have become more regular. This is well documented with these medications. As you lose weight, your body starts having more regular cycles, and even the possibility of becoming pregnant has become reported that women are becoming pregnant much more easily after losing the weight being on these medications. So definitely not a problem. Are there follow-up labs that are part of the plan to monitor health? Yes. So if a patient has an elevated A1C, the hemoglobin A1C, which is a measure of your long-term glucose control, your blood sugar control, if someone's is elevated coming into the program, then yes, I recommend that we check that at 3-month intervals until it becomes normal. If someone starts the program and their labs are already normal, then there's not a good indication to check follow-up labs unless they're having an issue at that point. Let's see. That was kind of a repeat question. Do you have to check blood? We got that one. If I have labs more recently, can we use those, or do you need more labs? If you have the correct labs in the last month, I'm totally 30 days or so, I'm totally fine using those. If it's been more than 2-3 months, I think we should really recheck because things can change over that time. And it's a specific set of lab values that we need. If you're if someone is that interested about using their own labs, definitely connect with our office and we can give you the list of labs that we require before starting the program. And then if it meets all those requirements, we can definitely use those labs instead. Absolutely. We've done that for patients who just recently had lab work. How do you do your dosage? A shot by myself or in the office? Great question. Okay, so this is a once weekly at-home injection that patients do on their own. The medication is, you may have seen people talk about these pens. We don't use the pens. The way this medication is administered is essentially you have a little vial that has your medication, and you have 4 syringes that are sent home with you or mailed to your house, either way. And through videos and instructional guides and whatnot, and support of our staff, we teach you how to fill up your syringes at home. It's very easy and straightforward. And then you essentially just administer the injection to yourself. It is the smallest, tiniest little needle you could imagine. Once you do it the first time, you will see that it is not a big deal. It actually hurts more to pinch the area that you're going to do it, to hold it still, than it does to put the little tiny needle in there and administer the medication. It takes about 10 to 15 seconds to give the shot, and there's really no aftercare, and that's what you do. And you can do it, most people do it when they rotate around their abdomen. You can do it in your thighs, you can do it in the back of your arm, although it's kind of hard to pinch your arm and do it at the same time, so you might have to have someone do that for you. But it's definitely something that patients do on their own at home, and we've had great success. We've had no issue with patients self-administering their medications at home. So that's a great question. Let's see. Any other kind of last questions here? I think we've gotten to most things. Oh, here's one that just came in. What is recommended to maintain muscle mass? Excellent question. So one of the things that's out there definitely in the media is this idea of losing smooth muscle mass. I'll just say right out the gate that if anyone loses significant weight, no matter what the method is, if you're losing 20, 30, 40 pounds, some of that weight, a significant portion of that weight will come from fat, but your body is going to be breaking down muscle as well. And so these medications have this reputation now that they cause smooth muscle wasting. It's just not true. If you lose weight with a gastric bypass, you're going to lose muscle mass as well, unless you do something to prevent that. So what are the things that I recommend to our patients to prevent loss of muscle mass when they're losing significant amounts of weight? Number one is you have to eat the right foods. So eating a diet that is sufficient in protein is number one. That could just be through, chicken, fish, steak, having all these foods that are high in lean protein. But also if patients feel like they're not able to get adequate protein intake that way, then protein shakes are very helpful. And you can supplement your diet with protein shakes to keep your protein intake up. The other thing that we recommend is do some baseline level of physical activity. You don't have to go to the gym 6 days a week and lift weights. If you do, that's fantastic. You'll probably definitely maintain your muscle mass and probably even build. but doing any level of mild to moderate physical activity will maintain muscle mass and help you avoid that potential complication, which is not unique just to these medications, but to any major method of weight loss. So that's a great question. We have lots of patients who ask that when they're here in the office. Great. I think that gets to most all of these questions. This has been, these are some excellent questions we've addressed tonight. So, like I said, this last slide has the info for contacting our office. If you are interested and want to learn more, you've already learned 99% of what the program is. But if you'd like to set up a consultation, which is the next step, I encourage you to scan the QR, send us an email, reach out to us. Let's set up a consultation, and we can get you enrolled in this program. Like I said, I've been in this for the past 8 months. I was the first patient in the program, and I totally stand by it. Like I said, I've lost 30 pounds and maintained that weight loss since June, and I feel fantastic. No side effects at this point. Never really did have any side effects. And so I can speak from firsthand experience to all of our patients. Also, as a last little plug, if I know there's some patients who are watching this webinar tonight who are actually already patients in our weight loss program, finding out more information, we have a new referral program. So if you refer someone to our program and you're already in the weight loss program, we will actually give you a $100 credit gift card to our med spa here in the office. So just as a little thank you for referring someone else to discover the benefits of this program, if they sign up and they join the program and they're part of it, we will send you a gift card for $100. That's just an extra perk if you refer a friend or family member. So that kind of wraps up this evening's webinar. I hope you found it to be informative. The Q&A was great. And if you have questions, send us an email, contact us, reach out somehow, and we'll be happy to help you and schedule you for your consultation. All right, that's it. We'll wrap up. Everyone have a good night.